Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zenker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker and I'm your host. And I am excited today to once again have a great guest on that's going to help you to work smarter in multiple ways. And I always love that because, strategies are cross-contextual and we can always learn how to leverage multiple areas of our productivity. So Michelle Prince is here today, and she's a best-selling author and a sought-after motivational speaker like myself. Hello, we are enjoying each other's company already. She's a self-publishing expert, and she's also a life coach and the CEO and founder of Performance Publishing Group, a partner publishing company dedicated to making a difference. And there's a lot more here. She's also worked with Zig Ziglar, and she's got a lot of cool stuff in her bio, but you can go read about that. Let's hear from Michelle directly without further ado. Hi, Michelle.
Hey there. Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. It's great to have you here. I know we said we're going to cover multiple things today, so that's kind of exciting. But before we do that, I would just like to know, just give me a couple of minutes. What's your story? Since we're going to be talking about story too, right? So tell me about your story.
I love it because that's what I love asking people about. So my backstory is really, I started my career working for Zig Ziglar, which was an amazing experience. And that's a long, crazy story of how that happened. But it really laid the foundation for my love for personal development and everything I do now. I ended up leaving there to go work in corporate America, spent 13 years in software sales, realized really, really quickly, or maybe wasn't so quick since it was 13 years. That's not so quick. It wasn't what I was really designed to do. And so in 2008 and 2009, I wrote a book, and the intention was really just to share my story, have it documented for my kids. But that one step actually opened up a full-time business of speaking and coaching and doing seminars, and obviously many steps in between. But really, it's just been this. My story is really just getting sick and tired of being sick and tired, and kind of putting my foot down and saying, you know what, I need to do something that is right for me, and it's my time. And what does it look like if I just start my own business?
It's interesting. We have more in common than, because I used to be in technology as well.
Oh, right. Really?
So, here's my theory about this, right? Is that technology is a productivity enabler.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? So, because people once, somebody asked me, how does all this fit together? Like what you have been doing in your career, and then you come to this. And I think that, that could be is that you're, productivity minded in that sense of looking to get to what makes the most sense, spend your time where is going to be of most value. And so we take stepping stones to get there, right? Does that resonate with you at all?
Oh, completely. Yeah. And I never really put it together like that, but you're so right. Because in software, there's process and a means to an end, and you move fast, and I love technology. I wasn't loving being in sales for all this.
Right.
But I still love it and leverage it. And, and maybe you figure out how to juggle more or manage more.
Well, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, right?
That's right. That's what I used to always say. I'm at my best when I'm busy. But then I realized, okay, how wrong that really is. I was really just multitasking. I wasn't really being as productive as I could have been.
Right. But I think the theory behind that, right, and is not that we're busy, but that we have to think about it differently, right? We have to be smarter about the way that we do things, because we can't, otherwise we won't be able to get the things done that we need to get done. So it does make sense.
Yeah.
And I think you've written something about procrastinators. Is that because you have a tendency to procrastinate?
Oh, no, not at all.
I'll get to that answer tomorrow, right?
Yeah. No, it's been said that, you teach and you train and you write about things that you most need to hear. And for me, that was the case. So I wrote my first book, which was a personal development book. But my second book was written with a purpose. I was in the process of starting a business. I was actually still working my software job when I started. And I was juggling 2 kids in elementary school, and I was so busy. And it was a life or death. I had to figure out how to really manage my time better, or I was going to lose it. So I started just studying time management and productivity and learning all these tips and tricks like, time blocking and all of these other things. And so I just started writing it down and sharing it, with people here and there. And before I knew it, I ended up writing a book on it, but not because I had this all figured out. I just wrote the book on it because I had to just go through the process of really focusing and managing my time in order to do all the things that I really wanted to do.
Right. I get it. I tell people all the time that I'm not perfect. I'm doing this and teaching this, but I have the same challenges, and I might just be quicker to come to a way to verbalize how to work on it than someone else, So
totally.
Maybe because we got that bug of self-development that we can't help but teach others what we're learning,
Yeah, you just pass it on, right? If it's good information, you don't want to keep it to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in that context, I do ask each guest, and I think it'll be interesting to hear yours. I like to ask people, what's your definition of productivity and why?
For me, it is being very intentional with what I do and time and blocking my time for priorities. There's freedom in I'm not allowing too much freedom. And I know that doesn't make sense, but for me, I am a huge time blocker, meaning like I put things in my calendar and I know exactly what I need to be working on. But I also set a lot of boundaries of when I'm available, when I'm not available. I'm a big believer in scheduling my more big blocks or important things first. Like my kids are now older. My youngest just left for college, but when they were young, I scheduled every football game, basketball game, soccer game, tennis match, you name it. And nothing got in the way of that. Right. So I'm just a big believer in, nobody's forcing us to put things in our calendar and do things. And we do have a lot more control than we think. And that with that comes a lot of freedom.
Yeah. You said something earlier. You said it seems that it creates freedom, but at the same time, it seems like it doesn't. Mm-hmm. I think that's the productivity paradox, right? It's like, that whole that less is more type of thing. And that by blocking and being specific and filling up your calendar, that it's actually creating more freedom and more space for those boundaries. So I definitely think that's why we have the emotional challenge to accept it. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about control, is that we know that to be true. We know that multitasking doesn't work. I mean, there's tons of different articles and everything about it, but we resist it.
Uh-huh. Oh, and even, I'll be the first to say, like you already said, we're not perfect. And I mean, there's plenty of times that I find myself with 20 screens open and I'm thinking, why am I overwhelmed? Well, it's because I am trying to multitask, and it's just come back to the basics, time block, one activity, stay focused. And then you just get more done, even though it feels like you're getting less.
Right. Because you're doing it sequentially, right? So I was just at a workshop and we were talking about different ahas and whatnot. And so one of the gentlemen was like, no wonder I start my day with so much stress. He said he comes to his desk first thing in the morning, and from yesterday he has 25 windows open, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So immediately he's overwhelmed. And so, we do have to look at little things to step back and start with a clean slate, and only, especially like you were saying, those big things first. Like you're not going to get to those big things if you have 25 windows open that are reminding you that you've got all these other little things to do.
And they're not the important things, right? They're not the things that someday you'd be like, oh, I wish I would have done that, right? Checking Facebook is definitely not on that list, or even emails sometimes, but taking that trip. Not. Yeah.
So tell us, since we're talking a little bit in this segment about the time management and some of the tips and tricks that you like to share, when you're time blocking, do you have like a different twist to it? Because some people who are listening, they're probably familiar with time blocking as scheduling, the activities or the categories of work that they're going to do. That's the way I look at it, is more categories of work. Do you have a special way that you do that works for you?
I don't know if it's that different or special for me. How I do it, a couple ways. One is I'm just big on whatever I have to get done in that day. I block it. And, this is going to sound silly, but like even a small little phone call, I have a sick dog today. And so just, putting it on my calendar for 10 minutes to call the vet. And this is honest to God, true story today. But if I didn't have it in my calendar, I would start to get busy. So I use mine as a little bit of a to-do, but also don't do anything else in this time. Another example. So I'm leaving town in 2 days to go back to back training events that I'm doing. And I have a lot of preparation and slides and things like that. And so I literally have pretty much every hour of the day slated out to do one particular thing. And when I do that, I literally put my phone away. I do shut off everything just so I can get that done. So it's just basic time blocking, but I do like to color code it as well. Especially when my kids were younger, I had a color, for my kids stuff. I had a color for if I was out speaking, a color if I was, just doing office work, and also, color for date nights with my husband. And, I call them the big rocks is what people know, but Zig Ziglar had this great thing called the Wheel of Life. And there are 7 categories.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I like to kind of map mine around my categories in the Wheel of Life. So my career, my personal life, my, spiritual life, physical health, and those kinds of things. And the reason that's cool is if you look at your calendar at a glance at a high view of the week, and let's say your career is red, right? And your kids and your husband are purple, let's just say. And if you look at your week and all you see is red and there's absolutely no purple, you're out of balance.
Right.
And the opposite is true. If you're, out playing and, you're doing everything but doing work, well, then that's out of balance too. So
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that too. I like to work with colors as well. There was something in there that you said that I wanted to follow up with, but it has escaped me. So
That's
we will
okay.
come back to it. So what's apps? Are there any apps? Like if I were to wipe off, your phone and you just got a new phone, what are the first things other than email and your calendar? Because those are obvious based on what you just said with time blocking. What are some helpful apps that help people to be a little bit more productive or manage their time better?
So there's so many. And I always tell people you have to find the one that you feel most comfortable with, because there's To-Do, which is connected to your Office 365 account. And so if you have Microsoft Office, that works great. And you can download the app to your phone. I personally like something called Alarmed, and it's just like alarm, just the way it sounds. And it's the same concept, but for me, I just like it better. It basically tells me anytime I have anything to do. I do this for all my follow-up calls. If I have a conversation with someone and they say, hey, give me a call in 3 months, great. I put it in Alarmed. And then, it'll pop up and alert me when it's come time to do that. It'll alert me what's not been done. I can also go back and track and see what I got done all week if I wanted to. So I personally like that one, but it's very similar to To-Do. I just like the way it's the simplicity of it a little bit better. And then believe it or not, I use the Notes app a lot. It's a sticky notes app. Mm-hmm. And so instead of having, sticky notes everywhere all over your desk, which I'm not going to say I don't still have sticky notes, I do, but it's, I can take it with me everywhere I go. So anytime I think of anything, in fact, I'll pull it up and just see if I have anything. I was actually, we were moving my son into college this weekend. And so I have a note of basically all of my tasks that I need to get done and getting him kind of set up and packed up and all of that stuff. And so what I do is I just come in here and just look at my running list of tasks. And then from there, I take what I need to do for that day and I schedule it into either Alarmed if it's a couple days out, or I literally put it straight away into my calendar as a block. And depending on if it takes me 15 minutes, 30, 45, an hour, I'll do that. I don't know. Here's one thing, and this is just kind of a time management thing, but it works really well for me, is I try really hard not to do more than 1 hour blocks, because the reality of somebody's going to text me, somebody's going to call, or an email is going to, I have to do something. And instead of feeling that guilt of like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this, this, and this, I just, I block. And then I have open block time. So that's my time to respond to emails, check texts, and all that stuff.
Right. I call it planning your flexibility, right? So planning so that you have time to be reactive, and the other time is time to be proactive. So, or whatever needs to get done. So I think that's important. I think people sometimes, like, we have this tendency to overdo one way or the other, right? So it's like schedule the calendar, overbook, overschedule, back to back everything, no transition time, or like leave too much open and think that that's going to create flexibility. So it's somewhere that happy medium in the middle, right? Is
exactly
giving yourself some space.
And it's a work in progress, right? I mean, there's so many things, but there's so many more. I mean, I used to use Evernote for forever and a couple others, but it's just finding something that works for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I like to ask because there's a couple of things that I use religiously, and they would be the first ones that I put on, like Text Expander. It's just like a little thing, but I do a lot of the same blurbs that I have to quickly find, like my bio. So I can just write #bio and then it'll show up in my email or in a Zoom link or wherever I want it to be.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah. So I love that. That's like the first thing that I put on because it just cuts out some of the wasted time of repeating, typing the same stuff. Or, I like sharing with people because I know we can geek out about different things. Yeah. So PlatStack is one of my favorite on Chrome. It's a Windows, what do you call it? A tab tool. So like you can save different URLs in categories so that if you're working on a project, for instance, you can save all the URLs in one stack. And then you can open them all at the same time, but then you can close them at the end of the night. And know that they're all there for you to open when you're ready to work on the project instead of leaving them all open.
Oh, I love that. I had not heard of that one. And I'm ready. I just wrote those two things down. I'm totally after this. like you said, I will geek over this stuff, but I love it.
And I'm not just like you. There's just a couple of things that I use because I think people are over-apt and always trying something new. So they never actually implement something and stick with it. I think that's our problem is that we're squirrel all over the place, squirrel app, shiny penny syndrome. And so, pick something and then use it and make it a consistent practice.
This is so basic. And I'm sure most, if not all of your listeners have heard this or know this, but if just in case I didn't for a while, but we're all remote mobile people these days, right? So you have things that are on your laptop that may or may not be on your phone. And so for me, what has saved me my life, I probably implemented this, I don't know, well, two things, 10 years ago plus. One is RoboForm, which there's a million different versions of that as well, which is just your password manager and having it on your computer and your phone and your iPad and your everything. So you can get in and you're not wasting time trying to get into an application.
Definitely. I use LastPass.
Okay. Same thing.
Awesome.
But the other thing, and this is what's so simple, Dropbox is, so personally, I have a Mac, but I don't save my files onto my Mac because I have crashed many a Mac through my years. So it's the best because literally, even as I'm waiting for something to boot up on my computer, I'm in my phone on Dropbox and I can work my documents just the same. I can update my slides from my phone if I need to. And just that auto synchronization has helped so much because that's one thing I've heard from people who have had issues with time management is like, well, but I'm not always at my desk. It's like, well, you don't have to be at your desk to get your work done anymore.
So absolutely, those are totally key. I don't even think about those anymore because they're just like standard.
Basic, I know.
But it's good that you mention them because a lot of people don't, right? Everybody has different practices and sometimes we just don't think about it. I'll share my latest cool thing that I use and then I want to switch topics a little bit. So I just started to get this Remarkable tablet.
Ah, yes.
So because I like to take notes on everything. I just like to write it down. I don't know. It's like a way for me to remember things, like a great podcast I'm listening to or a book that I'm reading. So, and then you talk about sticky notes. Oh my God, like sticky notes everywhere. And then it becomes a distraction, right? Like 1 or 2 sticky notes, reminder, that's good. 100 sticky notes, now it's a distraction. So I've been loving this to reduce the paper because I can then send it to, I use Evernote, you mentioned that earlier, and then I can just send it to Evernote and tag it.
Okay.
And then I have it there for searchability and it'll convert my handwriting to text and stuff. And I can have diagrams. So I'm absolutely loving this tablet. It's super thin, right? It's like a piece of paper, but I don't have to have paper all over my desk.
Yeah,
and tons of templates.
I know there was one a couple of years ago. I don't know if it's that same one, but so the technology is really good as far as converting it over.
It's gotten a lot better, and it could be better in integrating. Like, sure, I would love to see that the checklist there goes into like a to-do app or something. It's not quite there yet, and using tools like Zapier or something like that. So where you could get certain elements and put them somewhere, but it does allow you to save it as a PDF.
Yeah.
And then you can put it somewhere and you can have it put it into text if it's just handwriting.
And again, if you're on an airplane or something, you don't have your notebook with you, you can still be reviewing your notes, I'm sure, on your phone through the app of it. I love that. I'll have to check into it. Remarkable way.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So there we are, geeking out over time management stuff. But, really, like, for me anyway, time management for me is just how do we think, act, and be more strategic, right? Mm-hmm. And, that should tie nicely into the second part of the discussion. I asked you what your story was. I know you integrate and talk to people about bringing out their story and helping them to create their business from their story. Mm-hmm. And so why does that make sense? Why is that productive, in that sense of and working smarter?
Well, so I tell people all the time, I never intended to write a book or set out to do what I'm doing today. Certainly not helping people write books, never in a million years. But what happened to me was after I wrote my first book, that's what really opened up everything else. And so I kind of, I look at a book for two reasons. One, you just don't know how your story is going to impact someone. And the things that we just take for granted or assume everybody knows how to do, they don't. And so you're helping someone when you share your story. I like to think of our story as a gift, and, gifts are meant to be shared, right? The good and the bad part of our story too. Mm-hmm. It inspires and gives hope. But the other thing is, the leverage. So going back to the time management. And so by writing a book, that exponentially built my business faster than I could have ever done it without it. Because
me too.
Yeah.
I can,
exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, I always call like my book, my glorified business card, but it gets attention. Because of the book, I get a lot more speaking engagements, mm-hmm. right? You're seen as the authority in your space. So it really does help you to set apart. I totally see that.
I'm laughing because one of my books that I wrote is called that Your Book is Your Business Card.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah. And this little book is my business card. Like when I speak, this is what I give out for free in exchange for their business card.
Right.
But yeah, it is. And if you look at it that way, we all are the authority of our story. And, for you, it's all of the helping people to focus and get more done. But every single person listening has something personally or professionally that they could share with someone else. But when you put it in a book, it's just, it literally amplifies everything that you want to do, and it can happen a lot quicker. So
doesn't it help you get greater clarity on your story as well?
Oh my gosh, yes.
So then it's easier to communicate your story because you've worked on it, right? And it helps you to create that impact that you're looking to create. So I think there's so many different reasons why writing a book is valuable for somebody as part of their business process. And
it's not about a book. I mean, yes, it's nice, but it's more your story, but it's also who you become in the process of writing a book.
Yeah.
And you get that clarity on what you can, how you serve people and what you can help them with. It's just a really cool experience if you haven't been through it, but to see other people too, and how it's very consistent. And it's like it did it for you as well.
For sure. What would you say to people? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, and I felt this way. I'm like, well, I don't have any like incredibly moving, like I didn't think it, like my experiences might be everyday common, or I mean, I know that they're not exactly right. I mean, I have some different things. I worked in Zurich, Switzerland for 16 years. And so I've got, some very special different things that people here don't have. But I get that feeling. Like I had the feeling like, who's going to want to listen to my story? Like why do they want to hear from me? And I think there's a lot of people who feel that way. Maybe it's imposter syndrome, that, bug in our ear that says you're not important, you're not worthy. So how do you help people overcome that in telling their story?
Oh my gosh, everybody goes through it. I mean, I went through it for a long time. In fact, years before I actually made the decision and wrote my book, I secretly, because I didn't dare tell anyone I wanted to write a book, but I would say things to myself like, who do you think you are? I worked for Zig Ziglar for a while there. And so I would say, well, you're no Zig Ziglar. Who would care to read your story? And And it had held me back for a long time. And then one day I just had this epiphany and I'm like, well, why not me? Right. I mean, somebody may pick up my story or resonate with my story more than they would ever, listen to Zig Ziglar or something like that. So what I usually do is there's an exercise actually that we have all of our authors go through, or people that have come through our events, and helping them to get that clarity. Because when you see that you have your story is a combination of your passions and your experiences. And when you put them out on paper and see them firsthand and see all that you are, because that you are your story, then you start making intersections and you start to be like, oh, well, maybe that is unique. Maybe I did overcome poverty or abuse, or maybe I built a business and it wasn't so difficult. Maybe somebody could benefit from that. And
right.
So but all that to say, getting the clarity on your story, there is still that chatter, right? So you have to, that's why I love surrounding myself with other people that get this, right? You have to be around other people that like you and, who are in the same lane of trying to make things happen, because not everybody will understand, but find a community to support you. Listen to podcasts like this. I mean, the more now I'm in this world and I have been for a while now. And so writing a book, podcasting, all that stuff is just kind of like what everybody does.
Right.
But I wasn't in that world 12 years ago. And I remember the thought of like, oh, writing a book, who, me? And then once you do it, you're like, oh, it wasn't so bad.
Like most things that we undertake, right? We build this up to be much more difficult and put these roadblocks in front of us that really don't belong there and aren't there.
Yeah. It's like those, the analogy I always think of is that like a sliding glass door, in somebody's house, and you can't see necessarily that there's glass right there. And so how many times have you walked into a sliding glass door and you just kind of bump into it? It's those imaginary doors or windows right in front of you. So you just got to recognize them, open them, and then walk through. And then,
yeah, it's that simple. Slide it on over. And I think also, like you said, I worked with Tony Robbins, so we have a similar type of experience, right? But I don't need to be Tony Robbins, right? You don't need to be Zig Ziglar. I mean, and it's like, what are we comparing ourselves to? So when you write your first book, I mean, they've been in building up their authority and their brand for, 40 years, right? Or whatever, their whole career. Yeah. So if you're just getting into it and you're writing your first book, like, are you comparing yourself to the person who's top in the industry? That's silly. Crazy.
I know. But yet we think these things though, don't we? Or see other people on Facebook or Instagram who seem to have it all together. But
right. So that's why I like the question, also compared to what? Like, I don't have a good story. Compared to who? Compared to what?
And who says?
Yeah. And who says, right? All these big questions. Why not me? Like you said, right? And I think once we ask ourselves those questions, that we start putting positive questions in our minds to challenge it and be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So you said you have an exercise. Is there something that you could share with people that are listening that they could get a feel for what it's like to think about their story and how to start thinking about it?
Oh, for sure. And it's so so simple. What I usually say is just grab a sheet of paper and make a T chart. On the left-hand side of the T, write the word passions at the top. And with passions, I want you to list as many things as you can possibly think of that you just love, that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing, that light you up. It could be cooking, it could be traveling, it could be working with kids. For me, I'm passionate about personal development. I have been since I was 18. That's just kind of part of who I am. And that's when I met Zig at 18, actually. And that's one of my passions. And I'm passionate about the beach, kids, my faith, all kinds of other things. So, but as many things you can put on that list as possible is really the key. Then on the left-hand side of the T, on the right-hand side of the T, you write the word experience. And this is where you're listing everything that you've experienced in your life. Like, for example, you're a podcast host, you're an author. If you're a parent, maybe you've traveled the world, any experiences in sales or whatever, write it on that list. Now, the tricky thing with experience is we don't have to be passionate about it in order to experience something, meaning we experience things all the time that we did not want to experience. But yet it's part of your story. So you have to put it on the list. Doesn't mean that's what your book's about, but, could be bankruptcy or abuse or divorce or something, but putting it on your list is key. Then once you have both sides of those columns of the T chart filled in, And again, the more on the list, the better. Now where the magic is trying to find that intersection. What do you have that's on the passion side that is also on the experience side? For example, I'm passionate about personal development. On my experience side, I worked for Zig Ziglar, which was cool experience, but it ties together because I learned a lot of the things I'm passionate about personal development. I learned from him. But something else, and I share this with everybody, but I have on my experience list, when I was young, I had really low self-esteem, like middle school, early high school years. It's not like it was that big of a deal, but it did shape who I am, and it shaped decisions I made and relationships I had and all of those things. And so I put it on my list, not because I'm proud of it, but because it's just part of my story. And, but there's a connection. So I'm passionate about personal development. I had to use personal development and things I learned from Zig in order to kind of get me out of that mindset, that negative chatter, So there's a connection there. And that happened to be my first book, Winning in Life Now, How to Break Through to a Happier You. Mm-hmm. So that's really where the key is. And if you do this right, you'll likely have multiple connections. And then it's just a matter of, okay, well, which one speaks to me the most and which would be the easiest for me to get out the quickest? Because you can leverage published author status regardless of the topic. So it's which one, you can get out the quickest. But the key is having both the passion and the experience. Because if you only write about something where you have experience and no passion, those are the books that people start and never finish. And if the flip of it, if you only write about something that you're passionate about, but you have absolutely no experience, there's no depth there, right? You can be passionate about kids, but if you've never had kids, don't write a parenting book, It's that kind of thing. And my example on the other side of that is, so I was in sales my whole career, software sales and all that. And so I have the experience. And every time I thought about when I was early on, before I knew what I was going to write my book about, I thought, well, maybe I'll write a sales book, something about cold calling or something. And every time I thought about doing it, I was like, oh, it's just, I had no passion for it. I could do it. I could write a great book about it, but I just, and so I tell people, be careful what you write about because you will be speaking about it for a long, long, long time. And so make sure your passion's involved too.
What I'd like to do is just also for those that are listening, right? And maybe they don't want to write a book and that's not in their wheelhouse. I want to just point out how valuable it is to do this exercise nonetheless. So let's say you are in sales and you don't love it, but could it be more interesting and could you be better if you knew your story and you could bring your story in those conversations to create a greater connection with people, right? People love to hear other people's stories. Yep. So like if I were to do this list, right? And so, I don't know that I'm really passionate about time management. I'm passionate about helping people to think more strategically, right? Yes. Because to be smarter. But so if I put that on my passion side and then I put on my experience side that I started an IT company and I built it up and I used to work on as a consultant, like part of my story. And I use this in my speaking and in my talking is that, I learned my initial relationship with time was through consulting. So charging per hour. So I can work an hour and I will get paid that amount per hour. Well, in my technology business, you hit a ceiling. There's only so many hours you can work and only so many hours that your people can work. So I thought, well, I need to get involved in a different business model that's going to help me work smarter. So I went into fixed price contracts. As long as you know the nuances and how to do that, that could be more profitable and could maximize your time, right? So there's a lot of business models out there that don't work. That people are burning themselves out in those industries, but anyway, example of how those two come together and how someone can use their story in different contexts. So that's how I might use it, for instance, and people I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
So how do you also teach people how to use their story in their sales process and in other aspects of their leadership?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because like I said before, I never set out to help people with books. And so it's not about a book. It's more about your story. And so we do this a lot for people in corporate. We do it for business owners who may or may not ever want to write a book, but they do want to build a platform. And that's kind of what it boils down to is the power of authority, right? The power of leveraging your authority and what you can do with that. In fact, that's the title of my last book, The Power of Authority. There you go. And it is a little bit of a play on words where you can't spell authority without author, but it's not a book about help telling you should write a book. It's like, okay, well then what is your core message? What is it that you just love helping people with personally or professionally? And then how can you get that out there? A book is just one way. I mean, you get to build a platform, you have to do all of the different ways, podcasting, speaking, blogging, writing, even if it's just sharing your story over a cup of coffee or when you're doing a presentation. We just connect more when we know the backstory. This is my opinion, nobody really cares how successful you are. They'd be fascinated by it, but they really don't care until they know your why. Like, okay, so you've done this, you've written books, you've done that. Well, okay, but what led you to that? What's your story?
Right.
And you asked me that right when we started. And so whether everybody is asking that subconsciously or outwardly, what's your story? Why should I care? Why should I care?
What do I like about this person? What's relatable? What's connectable? What's likable? I think that those are things that we don't think that we're asking, but ourselves, but we are as we're listening to someone. So I would agree with that.
And a book just makes it easier for somebody to figure that story out about you. But truly, we do it all the time.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, Michelle, we could just go on and on. I can tell that we're just like enjoying our conversation and we forget that everybody else is listening, right?
Yeah.
But so thank you so much for, covering these two different topics. And they do interrelate, right? Because when you can be your authentic self and bring your story, there's nothing more productive than that. So tell people where they can get more information about you and anything else that you wanted to share before we close out today.
Okay, sure. So michelleprince.com or performancepublishinggroup.com are probably the two best. And we do free strategy sessions if you want to reach out. Or I'm mostly on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn probably, but anywhere you can find me there. I'll just leave it as, I do believe they're all interconnected, even though they seem different. But, I think that once you get clarity on your story, and I think your story is really part of your purpose, and that purpose is what's going to give you the clarity to your priorities. And priorities is what we're talking about with time management. That's really what it boils down to. Getting the things done that need to get done that are important to you and to other people. But in doing so, when you have that time to focus on helping more people, that's when you're making a difference and making a bigger impact. So they all combine together. But the first step is figuring out, what do you want and what are you going to do about it? There's no easy way. You got to take action.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for being here and listening and taking away some tips. And we talked about a lot today. We got some apps for you. We got, some discussion around some other tips and understanding how you can better think things through, how you can relate and find your story. I think that was one of the big things. So if you didn't do that exercise, really go ahead and do that and take a look at what you're passionate about and what experiences you have and where the overlap is and how you can use those stories, whether it's to build a platform or whether it's just to increase your influence with others as a leader by integrating that into how you present yourself. That in itself is going to make you way more productive in all of your relationships. And relationships is the key to the house, the key to the castle. So thank you all for being here. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.